And today, the topic I want to share about is about history. It has always been a topic worth discussing that how and why we shall study history. It started from middle high school, my history teachers loved to cite the famous saying of Taizong Emperor of Tang Dynasty, that using history as a mirror, you can identify and comprehend the progress of human civilization. Well, I was impressed by this cool sentence, since it sounds really cool. But I also struggled a long time for finding how exactly and factually can history enlighten us as the saying describes. Fortunately, with deepening my understanding and learning, I find some precious results I'm ready to share today. Admittedly, Renaissance was the only historical period during which the great artists, poets, and famous philosophers wheel back to history for their major inspiration. They take a wheel back on the famous civilizations established by ancient Greek and Rome and find the glory preserved in the past and successfully redeem the European continent from the Dark Age. However, if we turn to examine the great movements later on, we can find that the successful figures is getting different from the Renaissance one. Martin Luther, during the Protestant Reformation, he blazed the new trail for the new denomination in Christianity. He established his new church, an own church, called Protestant Church, which is separated from the Catholic Church, which is pretty corrupted. And later on, we can see that it is impossible for him to find the obvious historical experience and inspiration, since no one had established a new church before. So he's actually a futurist rather than someone who finds inspiration from the history. And during the Enlightenment, we can see the pioneer philosophers who addressed the natural right and the individual liberty of the commoners of the middle class. They also do not have history serve as their reference, since the middle class has never existed in the history before, or at least not in a large scale. And as history proceeds its own progress, we can see during the second wave of industrialization, Henry Ford, the successful entrepreneur, he provided his own production line, an invention which has eventually baconed the entire industrial production in modern world. He's also working things out through an innovative way, since he has successfully transcended the traditional barriers in business practices as well as labor resources organization. So, going back to all these famous examples we just mentioned, it seems that all of the famous figures after the Renaissance are futurists rather than someone who find history as their inspiration. And in this society features constantly accelerating tempo and dramatic change, we need to pose the question seriously to ourselves that what kind of role history is still playing in our contemporary world. Is that still beneficial as it once did during the Renaissance? But as we pose this question, we also have to respect the fact that the universal values still respect history as a reversed area of academic study, and it also, at the same time, constitutes a major part of our students' curriculum. So let us just assume that this existence is reasonable, and try to find a reason why history is still useful. Why history never loses its significance, no matter how the society changes and how the time flees. In order to answer this question, I think there is a worse method we can try today. Let's go trace the very origin of history and all the academic subjects today. Let's go find out answer in the study of philosophy. Philosophy is the subject in which we discuss methodology and logic, and it is commonly known that academic subjects today are the derivatives of this philosophy. So from mathematics to biology to history, they are all the combination between the methodology proposed by philosophy and their own applied knowledge. So for becoming an expert in this particular field, you have to become a philosopher first. To be more specific, you have to clarify the way in which you conduct your research and study in this field. So bearing with this fact, let us narrow down on finding our answer. So here, I want to give you a description to history here. It's a logic on motion. And I dare to say that with a deep comprehension to this logic on motion and finding the balance between logic and motion, you can find that history is exceptionally useful even in contemporary world, which is constantly changing. And our comprehension to the world around us can be boomed. So how do we define this logic and motion specifically? This logic clearly refers to how we record, analyze, generalize, and view the history in the past. And motion is the progress of history itself. We can understand it as the historical event itself. And the balance between them, I personally interpret it as an active attitude to always actively employing a logical view when you are considering the historical fact. So let us continue. As we can see, sometimes we are really doing a bad job in finding this balance. Sometimes we are not paying an effort to find a logical view when we are considering the historical fact. Rather, we are paying our effort unorganizedly. In some, say, hypocritical historians' works, you can see that they dedicate themselves to find every detail in the past, find every detail, every aspect of the Asian people. So their fetish to this perfectly detailed history has led them to practice a microscopic erudition in their work. And this microscopic erudition serves no benefit, as they are not following a balance between logic and motion. They are paying too much emphasis on motion. It is really meaningless for us to trace the very physical location of the city of Troy in the ancient text. The only thing worth learning about that mythical city is the foundational role Iliad played in the Western literature, rather than the city's physical existence. So in this case, although the hypocritical historians can obtain the sense of satisfaction from revealing all the historical facts, they may think that, well, the commoners, they are in ignorance of the historical details, so they are in ignorance of the history. But in this case, they are wrong. What they are doing has nothing to do with revealing, but is exaggerating. Since we are not talking about understanding and memorizing historical facts and details, we are talking about learning history in a logical way. So the real job, the real responsibility of the historians is not to be the secretary of the Asian people. Their real responsibility is to actively find the logical loop, find the flow of operations, find the fuses, events, and consequences, and so on and so on. That is the genuinely correct manner in our pursuit of history study. So, although we have spent several minutes on narrating how to study history philosophically and smartly, cleverly, it seems that our question remains unsolved. Since our narratives is pretty abstract, difficult to comprehend. In this case, I think we may need some practical examples. The examples which can illustrate how exactly and factually we can follow an organized way in the history study. Demokratos is the democracy in Greek language, a vocabulary which has its subsisting significance throughout human history, and even in contemporary world, democracy is a prevailing value. So for understanding this value, we can trace this vocabulary back in the history in a chronological order and logical way. So start with a war happened 2,000 years before on Greek Peninsula, which is commonly rendered as Peloponnesian War, during which two powerful states, Sparta and Athens, battled on each other. Athens, known as the democratic one, was defeated by Sparta, a state which features oligarchical rule as well as militarism. So this result obviously reveals the inherent inefficiency in democratic political institutions. And it also disappoints the proposal for democracy for a long time in history. One of the icons in the Western intellectual tradition even proposed an idealistic political model in his famous work, The Republics, that a mighty being must rule without any institutional check. And he named this doctrine as philosopher must rule. So, going back to this history, we can conclude that it is really unreasonable to practice democracy in a political institution within which the citizens' reasonability cannot be ensured. However, as the history continues, we can see after the industrialization, the rise of middle class, which means that the majority of the citizens is now becoming more and more educated and competent for political participation. They can now reasonably and consciously participating in political decisions in their nation. So consequently, we can see the pioneer philosophers started to address the natural right for these commoners so proactively. And let's see the actual embodiment of this natural right. The Glorious Revolution in England, American and French Revolution are all represent the sense of natural right to spread in commoners' mind. And we can see, as the history continues its progress, as the spread of the high-quality education, the discriminated races and gender all started to contend for their own individual liberty. So in this road, in this contemporary road, in which all of us value our autonomy and individual liberty, respect to history for understanding our value is obviously necessary. And this pattern is obviously not only functional when we are discussing some of the abstract political ideas, it's also functional in some of our daily events. For example, our embracing to the culture shock. Let me provide you a personal example. Last year, when Christmas came, I went to wish one of my foreign teachers a happy festival, and we started a chat. He told me that he has not returned home in the last Christmas day, in the last 3 Christmas days. I was literally shocked, since as a Chinese people, I cannot imagine my feeling if I do not return to home in 3 consecutive Spring festivals. That's really bad. But associating the historic knowledge I learned, the differences between Westerner and Chinese, I can understand why my foreign teacher, we do not feel regret for absent from home in 3 consecutive Christmas days. So as a Chinese people, I know that I am bearing the long-lasting effect of our agricultural tradition, which makes us have a stronger intimacy to our soil and hometown than the other races in this globe. And also, our Confucius orthodoxy also imposes us a more strong social bond and family bond than the Westerners. So associating this knowledge, I can understand this culture shock and embrace it easily. We can see that there are so many instances prove that with a proper, logical view on history, we can eventually find it exceptionally useful. Going back to the famous examples I mentioned in the beginning of my speech, Martin Luther, we can see that he's working things out through establishing a new church, through his own innovative thinking, but he also observed the corruption and wrongdoings and an irrational hierarchical system within the Catholic Church in the centuries before him. Also, for the world time and other pioneer philosophers during the Enlightenment, they are the best concluder and journalizer of history in the past, since they can clarify that the rise of middle class as well as the accompanying industrialization. And for Henry Ford, he has experienced the inefficient labor organization as well as the allocation of resources in the late 19th century in his own factory by himself, that he can provide us a beacon invention of his production line. So, I think in today, as we are conscious about how to follow a view which is philosophical under our study of philosophy, on our own pursuit, we can eventually usher our own world into a new era. Thank you.